Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy beans, Merry Obscure Christmas to you all. Hope you're doing well, hope you're all good this festive season. I'm your host, Luke the Jolly Bean. I am so excited. It is finally December, it is Christmas, it is my favourite time of the year, and boy oh boy have I got a treat for you all. Not just today, but this month of Christmas. But before we get into all that, I've got to do what I always do, a bit of housekeeping, because I like to keep my house nice and clean, especially during the winter. So if you want to follow me on X at nerdstalgic_pod, by all means, please do. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you listen to this on Spotify, on your mobile phone, don't forget to leave a 5-star rating. I'm really close to 40 ratings. I'm currently, as recording this, I'm 37. So if you can boost me up to 40 ratings by Christmas, I will be eternally grateful this holiday season. So today we're going to be looking at I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus from 2001. This is part of my Obscure Christmas series. So to kind of track back a bit, so for anybody that doesn't know, obscure means anything that's been undiscovered or not very known about. Now, my idea, and hopefully it's going to work, fingers crossed, it might do, it might not. But for the first 2 weeks of December, I wanted to dedicate it to Christmas movies from my childhood that nobody talks about. These are Christmas movies that I remember watching, but when I ask anybody else, nobody remembers them. And nobody talks about them, not just in the podcasting realm, but on movie reviews, on YouTube or whatever. So I wanted to bring light to these movies. Now, not to say these movies are like perfect, the best in the world, the best Christmas movies, you should go out and watch them. Not at all. But I just wanted to cover two topics for the first 2 weeks of December of films that nobody really talks about. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So today we're going to be looking into I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus from 2001. So my memories of this movie, and again, it's been a long time. This is one of them films that I remember watching on TV, and it was on TV a lot when it came out, like the early 2000s, and then it just disappeared. And it just went into the ether. It was like one of them movies that like just came and went. And, you know, when I was doing my research of this film, I remember it quite fondly. I remember enjoying it. I remember finding it quite funny and enjoyable. But then when you look at the reviews and some of the things that people said about it, it's not very highly claimed at all. There are a lot of people that like this is like a D to E class sort of movie. It's not that great. And I'm like, well, I remember liking it. So yeah, it's kind of one of those where like I'm second guessing myself now. Like, was this movie as good as I remember it being, or was it generally because it was 2001? I was like 3-4 years old at the time, possibly a little bit younger. That's why it appealed to me, because again, I remember watching this and watching like Jack Frost. And if you know how much I love Jack Frost, if you was here last year and you watched my Jack Frost review for Christmas, you know how much that movie means to me and how emotionally moved it had me at a young age, and still at 26, it still emotionally gets to me, and it means a lot, and it's like a cornerstone of my being, really, next to the Iron Giant. So, you know, I remember watching them together. I remember being at my nan's house. My nan, she used to live in, it was like a I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if it's a masonette or what you'd call it. But basically, you had the kitchen and that downstairs, and then the living room was on the second floor, and then you had bedrooms on the top floor. It was a weird layout of this house. And I remember distinctly going to her house for Christmas every year with my family. And you'd have the Christmas tree. My granddad always used to have a steam train that used to go around the tree, and I used to want to touch it, and he'd be like, no, don't touch that, like it was his prized possession. And obviously being young, you want to play with the train. and it would go round. And then one year, I remember he looped it and he went up and around the tree and it went over the fireplace and it went down. And maybe this is real. Just how I remember it. Maybe it wasn't as spectacular as it was, but I remember all that. And I remember the stockings and Christmas. And I remember watching this movie and enjoying it. And then watching Jack Frost and watching George in the Jungle all the time because I love George in the Jungle. Why haven't I covered George in the Jungle? It's a fantastic movie. I've got to cover that next year. I've got to write that down on my piece of paper so I remember. But we're not here to talk about George in the Jungle today. But that's sort of my memories of it. It's basically kind of to read you a synopsis of this film. So after a boy sees a man in the Santa Claus suit kissing his mother, he thinks that the real Santa wants to replace his father. So he basically starts a prank war with him. So think Home Alone mixed with Dennis the Menace, where like he starts setting traps, he starts being a bad kid because again he thinks, well, there's no point being good because Santa's kissed my mum. I'm going to basically be a problem child, and I'm going to be bad at school, cause loads of issues. I'm going to set traps for Santa, so when he comes, he's gonna. I distinctly remember it was snowing outside in the front of the house, and he put rakes out and covered them in snow. So as his dad in a Santa suit was walking around, he would hit them and smack him in the face. Again, it's all slapstick humor, but kid, it was hilarity. And I remember these sort of things, and now I'm thinking back on it, I'm getting these sparks of like little blips and blops in my head of like, oh, I remember this, I remember that. But there's not really much more to say, to be honest, in terms of my memories. It's been that long since I've seen it, so I am looking forward to going back and watching it. And again, this is the reason why I wanted to do this obscure Christmas, is because it's a film that, even though it might be great or it might not be, it could be all rose-tinted glasses. The point is that it's a movie that shouldn't be forgotten at the end of the day. No movie should be forgotten, even the bad ones. And I just wanted to cover some Christmas movies that nobody talks about this holiday season. So that is the idea behind it. So as for the cast, there is a huge sort of cast-ish, but I'm only going to talk about sort of the main people in it. So you've got Connie Sellecca as mom. You've got Corbin Bernstein as dad. You've got Colin. Oh, sorry, not Colin. Colin. Where the hell does Colin come from? You've got Cole Sprouse and you've got Dylan Sprouse. So they both play the same character. Kind of think how they did with Big Daddy. They both play the character Justin Carver, who is the sort of main character of it. And I think this was probably my first introduction to them. And then I remember watching Big Daddy. Or possibly Big Daddy was first, and then I saw this. Depends on what year. I think Big Daddy came out the year I was born, actually. I can't remember. But either way, one of them would have been my first introduction to them. And then I remember a couple of years later watching Sweet Love, Zack and Cody. And that's where sort of it began there. Usually by this stage of the review, I'd be talking about the production. But to be honest, I can't find anything on the production. I think because this movie was one of them sort of cheap Christmas sort of Hallmark sort of films, there is just no production notes at all. So I can't find any. All I could find was that it was filmed in Utah, and that's about it, really. So I'm just gonna stop talking now. I'm gonna go off. I'm gonna go watch this movie. Fingers crossed. I am hopeful that it is as I remember it. Hopefully I'm going to enjoy it. Hopefully it's going to be as fun as I remember it being. It might not be. Like I said, as an adult now, I might watch it and go, "Oh, this film, yeah, the reviews are right. It's very it's very Metacritic. It's very sort of yeah." Or it could be a surprise. But either way, like I said, it's obscure, it's different, it's Christmas. I'm going to go it with an open heart and with full of cheer and full of merriment and full of Christmas, and I'm going to see if it is good as I remember, or if not. And that's the whole point of podcasting, really. So I'll see you all in a minute. I'm going to go off and watch the movie. You yourself get you ready, get some hot chocolate, wrap up warm, and after this lovely jingle, we'll be right back. Right, so welcome back. I've now watched the movie. If anybody wants to follow along with me, by the way, you can find the full film on YouTube. You're going to have to watch a few ads at the beginning, but the whole movie is over on YouTube. It's in good quality. So if you want to watch along with me, by all means, go to YouTube and you'll find it there. As for sort of my first impressions, it's not as bad as I was kind of thought it was going to be, because I generally thought going into this it was going to be like Roast into Glasses. That I remember it being great because again I was only little when it came out. I was the target audience, and I was thinking I'm going to go into this and it's like that nostalgia wall is just going to fall. I'm like, this is not as good as I remember, but it's not that bad actually. Like it's not an all-time classic, to be honest. Like in all fairness, it is very much a Hallmark movie. And for anybody who doesn't know what that means, obviously Hallmark are the company that make a lot of the greetings cards, a lot of the festive Christmas cards, birthday cards, and things like that. And they are very well known of the type of people to make these very cheaply cheesy Christmas festive sort of movies. And I know I grew up with them. My parents, my mum and my nan, they love those sort of films. Like especially here in the UK, we have a Channel 5. Channel 5 always plays those cheesy, cheaply made Christmas films. Well, not all year round, but very, very early, around about September, October, they start playing them. Especially now that it's November, I'm recording this, they're on 24/7 all the time. But like growing up, my mum would always have like True Movies on, and like Hallmark made a lot of the movies on there. My nan still every year, there's a channel that comes on here in the UK. I think it's called Christmas 24/7, and it is literally the namesake. It's like 24/7 cheaply made Christmas movies. You get a few hits here and there, but it is all cheesy. But again, that's not to say that that's bad. That's not to say that's a criticism. It's just the fact of some of them are good and some of them are not. And this film does feel like a Hallmark sort of standard film. And I'll get onto the story in a minute, but it just has that feel to it. Maybe there's a little bit more production, a little bit more money in this one, but it just very much feel like, oh, this is a Hallmark classic sort of film. But overall, it's not terrible, really. Like it's a film that you could watch, you can enjoy. If you've got little kids, you can put it on, and they'll find a lot of enjoyment with it. It does generally feel a bit like Dennis the Menace meets Home Alone at points. Which again isn't a bad thing, to be honest. You also have the Sprouse twins. They're okay. The acting is not solid. Again, they are only young kids, and obviously hindsight being what it is, seeing them like on Sweet Love, Zack and Cody, and then Riverdale, and then them doing their own things now, they have gotten better with their acting. Obviously in Big Daddy as well, but here it's not great. The other kid, Bobby, who is the friend of obviously Justin, which is the character that the two Sprouse twins play, he actually is kind of a better actor than the twins are, and it made me wonder if like why didn't they just swap the actors around, of like have this kid who plays Bobby as Justin and then have the twins play the friend. I don't know, maybe because like they were up and coming stars and like they booked the role, and it was like, yeah, again, we all know what the Sprouse twins, where they went eventually, but it's not a bad film. Like I said, it's a festive film. It's all right. Like the nostalgia that I had for it has gone down a little bit because I remember it being bigger and a lot more sort of, as we all do. We all remember it being a lot more sort of better than things are. That's how nostalgia works. But it's still a good time, and I still enjoyed myself. As for the story, like I said, it's very Hallmark. It's very sort of Route One. So Justin and his mate Bobby, they're at Thanksgiving dinner at Justin's house, and they're playing, having fun. Their parents are downstairs talking amongst themselves, and Bobby's parents have an argument, and they basically decide, that's it, it's done. We're going to have a divorce. And Justin sees this, and obviously he's a young kid; he doesn't really understand. He's saying to his parents, "Will Justin be okay? Not Justin. Will Bobby be okay? Like, will he? Is things going to be okay?" And like his parents are like, "Look, he'll be fine. Don't worry about it. He's a strong guy." And so Bobby's like sort of the naughty kid, and he starts acting up and playing up. And Justin, then a day sometime later, obviously past it's Christmas time now. Justin hears his parents arguing, and he's worried that, oh god, my parents are going to break up. I'm going to be just like Bobby. I don't want my parents to divorce. I don't want them to break up. I love my family. So he basically he's worrying, panicking. After sort of the parents had the argument, the dad decides, you know what, because they are a loving family, and they do love each other. So it was very much like, you know what, I'm going to dress up like Santa. I'm going to go in, and I'm going to be a bit cheeky with the wife. And like there is one line in this film, like there's a couple of lines, but there's one line in the film where like you've got the dad dressed up as Santa, and he goes to the mom, and he gives her a hug, and he goes, I bet you. He goes, I'm going to do the Santa voice. He goes, ho ho ho, have you been a good girl? And she goes, oh Santa, I've been a very naughty girl. And then, and again, I don't know how this line passed because for a kids movie. Then obviously the dad looks at the mom, obviously in the Santa voice, goes, ho ho ho, well, I hope you are going to be a lot naughtier later tonight. And I was like, whoa. What kind of film are we watching? This took a turn, you know what I mean? But obviously nothing happens, and they have a kiss at the bottom of the stairs. Obviously, Justin hears Santa and all this stuff. He gets his camera, because he basically says to his mate, like, Santa's here, and his mate's like, oh, I don't believe it. It's too early. Santa's not going to be there. He's like, I'm going to get proof. So he goes down. He takes a picture, and as he takes a picture, he sees Santa and his mum kissing, not knowing that it's his dad. And again, I saw mommy kissing Santa Claus, that sort of thing. And then he sort of, again, being very young, he then goes on like a rebellious streak. He's like, oh my God, my mom's cheating on my dad with Santa, and what am I going to do? And his mate, Bobby, who's the troublemaker, he basically says to him, he's like, look, you've got to be as bad as possible, because Santa doesn't come to naughty kids. So if you are very sort of misbehaved and naughty, he won't come, and then Santa won't come and visit your mom and all that sort of jazz. And then Bobby was like, well, how can I save my parents? We'll get my parents back together. And then he based Justin, who is like the goody two shoes. He goes, you've got to be good. You've got to behave. You've got to be nice, friendly, blah, blah, blah. So it's like role reversal. Whereas like Justin now becomes the bad kid, starts getting naughty and playing up and playing pranks. Whereas Bobby then turns and he makes the wish of like, if I'm good this Christmas, Santa will fix my family and put them back together, which is really, really nice. And then obviously the movie goes on, and this is where it gets a bit more sort of like Dennis the Menacey sort of thing, where like he's sending letters to Santa saying Santa's a rat and all this. And I'm like, whoa. You can tell it's like an early sort of like not early 2000s sort of movie, because like you wouldn't get that in like a Christmas movie nowadays of like a kid sending a message to Santa being like, Santa's a dirty rat, and saying it out loud to Santa a couple of times. And he gets on the mic as, attention shoppers, Santa's a home wrecker. And I'm like, whoa, bloody hell. What kind of movie was I watching when I was younger? I don't remember any of this. And again, I guess you don't notice these things as a kid. You just sort of, you're in there for the laughs and the jokes, but it was very much of like, whoa, how did this pass in the script? But yeah, that's where it gets a bit more Dennis the Menace. Like every time he sees this one Santa Claus guy dressed as Santa, he's on the street corner ringing the bell, trying to get some money. And every time he sees him, he just torments him. He throws snowballs at him. He writes notes saying, go away or else you're a rat, blah, 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 blah. And like for a little kid, this kid's, he's a man on a mission. And then as the story sort of goes on, there is a moment where he's in a mall, and like you have this thing where he goes on the mic, basically says Santa's a big dirty rat and he's a cheat, and he goes, stay away from my mom, blah, 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 gets a meringue pie, lobs it in Santa's face, and you have like a bit of hijinks in the mall where he's running away. Santa's on a scooter trying to chase him. All bits of hijinks. Very much like there are many times when I was watching this movie where I was just like, that it's not completely copying, but there are moments where like, okay, I can see where you've taken inspiration from this Christmas movie. I can see where you've taken inspiration from that Christmas film and that Christmas film. The bit of Home Alone in there. There's a bit of the Santa Claus in there, because obviously that came out in like 1994, 95. So there's a bit of the Santa Claus in there. There's a bit of other Christmas movies. So I'm noticing sort of the similarities. Still, but again, it's not so blatant where it's like, okay, that was a copy, but it's very much of like, oh yeah, I noticed sort of the references here and there to this and that. I do love it where like there's one bit where like he writes a letter to Mrs. Claus, and then he attaches the photo of him and his mum kissing like his Santa, and he like sends it out. I'm like, this kid's a little rebel, little savage. And again, I think at this moment, I think the acting somewhat improves when it's just like the kid being a kid. But like there are at the beginning of the movie, when you get sort of the Sprouse brothers acting, it's not so great. But again, they're only little, so again, I'm not going to judge them on that. But sort of, I'm getting to like sort of the end of the movie at this point. This is where the Home Alone part of it comes in, because obviously the mom and the dad don't like, they know he's acting up, but they don't know as to why. So they still think if they'll be like, oh, well, if we talk about Santa, because he loves Christmas, he loves Santa, that he'll start changing his ways. And so obviously the mum's on the phone to the dad, and she goes, "Hi, Santa. Oh, how are you?" And the kid's like, he really looks like Justin's got a very disgusted face, like, "I can't believe you're talking to me in front of me," sort of thing. Um, and he basically goes, "Oh, you're coming, sort of. You'll be home late, obviously, because the dad's working like a couple of hours away out of town, so he's going to coming back late." So Justin's like, "Oh, right, that's it. He's coming tonight. I ain't having it." So this is where Home Alone comes in. He basically, it's not full Home Alone, but it's kind of like in the same sort of vein. He gets, like I said in the introduction, he gets some hose, and he buries them in the snow, so that when the dad walks in, he trips on them and hits him in the face. He puts a sprinkler system on, so go on at midnight. So his dad gets there at midnight, so it goes on. It soaks him really, really cold. He puts like a what's it called now? Like kind of like a trap, basically, a rope trap where the dad's going to stand in it, and when he triggers it, it's going to pull. And then on the other side of his house, he's got a big jug full of water, and that's going to pull his dad up and then sort of sling Santa up by his leg. And obviously, dad comes home. It all happens, and by this stage, the postman has basically said, like, usually we keep the Christmas letters that are sent to Santa, obviously because the postman and Justin have a bit of a sort of, like, you can tell he really likes Christmas, and he loves Santa, or he has done normally. The postman's like, "Okay, we'll give you the letters back, just kind of see the letters that he's written to Santa, because it's very cute." And obviously the mum opens them and she goes like, "Oh, Santa's a dirty rat, go home or else." And he's like, "Whoa, what's all this?" And then she sees the letter to Mrs. Claus, and she sees the photo. Then she sort of realizes, "Oh crap," And then obviously when dad comes home and everything happens, it's one of those where it's like, "Whoa, okay, got to have a conversation, a chat, be like, look, I was the guy that was kissing your mum dressed up as Santa." But also, not to dispel sort of the belief in Santa, he's very much the fact of, I'm one of Santa's helpers, I'm one of Santa's workers. I just dress up as Santa, but he does the proper job. And obviously Justin sort of falls for it. And it kind of fixes sort of the problems that he's been having. They've realised, oh, okay, the reason he's been acting up is because he thinks that we're breaking up. And obviously it links to Bobby and his family. Then he goes to sleep that night. He hears jingle bells. He hears a bit of commotion downstairs. So he runs to the landing and he looks in. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. He's putting like lawn darts. I don't think you can get them anymore. But they used to be a big thing back in like the 90s, early 2000s, probably even further than that, really. But you used to get lawn darts with like a giant darts that you would throw on the lawn, and you'd have a big target thing. Anyway, he'd had these lawn darts, and he basically jams them into the fireplace, so that obviously when Santa comes down the chimney, he's going to land on them. So when he looks there, he's got the commotion is Santa's been pricked in the bum with these lawn spikes. He's like, "Oh, that's going to leave a mark," and he starts leaving putting the presents out. Obviously, Justin goes to get his camera, comes back, Santa's gone. And then he hears commotion on the roof. He looks out of his window and you see Santa flying off. Well, you don't see it, but you hear Santa flying off. And obviously this proves to obviously Justin that Santa's real, and that he's not a home wrecker, and that he's not a dirty rat. I still can't believe they got away with that. But again, like, you wouldn't get it nowadays, but I guess like in the early 2000s, they were like, "Hey, you know what? It's a kid's movie, whatever." And then you get it's Christmas Day, you get the Christmas meal. And obviously the parents are like, "Oh," 'cause obviously it reminds me. There was a moment in this as well where it's very much the fact of like Jingle All the Way. Well, like, obviously Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's trying to get the Turbo Man doll. Obviously in this universe, in this movie, Justin really wants a is it Titan Commando or something like that? But basically, he's a kind of Turbo Man sort of superhero sort of character, and he basically, there's this new toy out, and it's like a battle suit you can wear. You can tell it's just literally an ice hockey suit with a helmet that's been spray painted silver. But again, low budget. We're gonna brush past that. So obviously the kid wants this new suit. Parents couldn't get it for Christmas. And then obviously Santa delivers it, and they all ask themselves a question on Christmas Day, like, where did that come from? You didn't get it. I didn't get it. Granddad didn't get it. Where did it come from? Obviously, but it's like, okay. But obviously we know, and obviously Justin knows, but it's very much fact of, I don't know where that came from, but okay. And obviously they're having Christmas dinner. Bobby comes with his family. Obviously he's been a good boy for Christmas. He got his wish. His parents are deciding to work it out, that they're getting counselling. It's all good. Obviously Bobby's got one of the suits as well, so they're playing. And it's really, really lovely, very Christmassy. And just before the movie ends, The one Santa Claus, the one bloke that this kid Justin has been tormenting all of December, throwing snowballs at him and just being really horrible to him because obviously he thinks he's the real Santa. Comes to the door. He's beaten up. He's got a fractured arm. He's walking with like a crutch. And he answers the door. Like comes to the door and he's like, "Oh, I'm just collecting for some people." I missed what he said, but he said, "I'm just collecting for some people." And basically, as he says that, he sees the kid, the devil child, that as he sees him, freaks out and then runs away. And then you've got the kid's got that look on his face, that really cheeky sort of look of it's like, oh, and his mum's giving that look of like, what was that all about? And I don't know. And then obviously they close the door and the movie ends. And obviously that brings on sort of the presentation. The story's all right. It's as again, it's your very standard Hallmark sort of Christmassy sort of film. There is funny moments in it. Obviously, it's the presentation of Christmas is done really, really well. It actually got me very nostalgic, not just because I was watching a movie that I haven't seen since I was a wee bean, but also because I love Christmas. Christmas is my favorite time of the year. And it was generally one of those where even though it's like the 6th of November as recording this and as I'm watching the movie, very much because, again, here in the UK, it's always very grey. And especially at Christmas, it's grey, it's cold. And because it gets dark very early here, it is one of those where it's like you just want to stay in your pajamas all day. You don't really want to get dressed unless you have to. So as I watched the movie, I was really tempted to go, you know what? I just want to watch another Christmas movie. And so it works in getting you nostalgic. It works for getting you in the mood for Christmas, because I've watched a lot of these modern Hallmark sort of Christmassy, cheaply made sort of movies. And one thing they don't do is that, yes, they're set at Christmas, but you don't feel Christmassy. The stories are too convoluted. The stories, there's too much going on. Like I can't get into the festive mood because I'm trying too hard to focus on what's going on, but I'm not being able to really understand what's going on. And I feel like this film does the basics. It sets up what it needs to set up, and then it just goes for it. And then you just have the devil kid tormenting Santa for the most part of the movie, and then the realization, and then Christmas is saved, and woohoo! You know what I mean? And it was getting me very sort of nostalgic, and I loved it for that. So really my overall thoughts are, it's not a movie that deserves to be forgotten. Like, it should be remembered. Granted, it's not the best Christmas movie in the world, and it wouldn't be on my top 10 Christmas films of all time. But it's still enjoyable. There's still nostalgia there. And if you remember this one, you might want to go back and check it out, and you might enjoy it. If you've got kids, I think they'll definitely enjoy it, because they won't care so much about the acting. They won't care so much about the subject matter, as I didn't when I was younger. It was just the fact of, it was a Christmas movie. There was a kid being naughty and being sort of rebellious and throwing snowballs at Santa, and that's hilarious. As a young kid, it's funny. And like, I will admit, even now as an adult, there were certain parts where I was laughing and giggling, especially the parts where it's like Santa's a dirty rat and stuff like that. I was like, whoa, that was making me giggling, because it caught me off guard, because I don't remember it. And then when I rediscovered it, I'm like, bloody hell. Wow, okay, we're going there. And then it kind of led me off, like, what else don't I remember about this movie? And there were different moments where I was like, I don't remember that. I don't remember that line, So obviously I got that chance to rediscover these sort of moments. But again, your children, they'll probably find it funny. They wouldn't mind it probably so much. Again, it's just it's a standard Christmas film, to be honest. It doesn't deserve to be forgotten. And I'm glad that I was able to kind of watch it again and sort of bring it to light. As I mentioned, it is on YouTube. So if you want to watch it on YouTube, just type in "I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus" movie, and it should be on there. Or the whole film. Like I said, you will have to watch some ads at the beginning. But again, they're only at the beginning, and after that, they're not there at all. So yeah, I have no trivia, because like I said, I couldn't find anything on the production of this movie. So I couldn't find any trivia. So I just really enjoyed it. I did. And I'm glad I've got to re-explore it this year for Christmas. And I think you'll enjoy it too. So thank you very, very much for joining me on my first episode of my Obscure Christmas. Hopefully this goes well, this new format, this new sort of side series that I'm doing for Christmas. If it goes well, I might do more of them next Christmas. But obviously we've got one more episode to go. The next episode, I'm not going to say the name, but it's a lot more modern sort of movie. So this was 2002. I would say the next film is a couple years later. I want to say 2006, 2007, potentially. I can't really remember. But it's another obscure sort of Christmas movie. It's one that, again, you tell people about. They're like, I don't remember that movie at all. And it's been a long time since I've watched it. So I'm looking forward to rediscovering that one. But you'll find out what that is very, very soon. But to make sure that you don't miss what I'm looking at and what I'm watching and what I'm doing, especially how now it's December, and now that by this stage in December, because even though it's November, I'm recording this, by the time this comes out in December, I will already be planning on what's going to be happening next year for season 4, my 4th year of podcasting. So to be kept up to date with that and to be kept up to date with what's going on for the rest of Christmas, please do follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Nerdstalgic_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And even know, leave me a comment down below of like what your favorite Christmas movie is, or do you remember this Christmas movie? I doubt it, because not many people do, but if you do, please do. I really want to know, because I just want to make sure I'm not the only person that remembers this film. And also, if you listen to this on Spotify, don't forget to leave a 5-star rating. And also, on Spotify, on your mobile phone, you can now leave comments. So same as you would on YouTube, just go down below, write a comment. It can be feedback. It could be, again, comment a favorite Christmas movie, anything like that. Please do drop a comment, leave a rating. I'd be eternally grateful. It'd be a Christmas present to me, and I would be greatly, greatly appreciated of it. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. I've been your host, Luke the Jolly Bean. Hope you all have a fantastic beginning of December. And yeah, you've been listening to the Nerdstalgic podcast, and I'll catch you very, very soon in the next one. Bye-bye, guys.